Thank you. When they had called and asked me to make this introduction, I must say I gulped. It is daunting to introduce the Reverend Tilden Edwards as a friend and as a spiritual giant. But I have learned from Tilden, who learned it from Jesus, that love casteth out fear. And so I stand here in love to introduce you despite my fears. I've thought a lot about Tilden since I was asked to do this, and it's been wonderful having him in my mind so much. And I've thought of some of the qualities that I think all of us really appreciate about him. He's humble, he's curious, he's warm and he's kind, he's very funny, and he loves to laugh at other funny people. He, of course, is well educated and well read, and he's intellectually rigorous and honest. And one thing that I love about him is he remembers people's names very quickly. And I first noticed this when I was outside of a workshop room, and a participant went in. He was getting ready, setting up, and she went in, and she came boiling out, all excited. She said to her husband, "John, he remembered me. He remembered my name." And I turned to Monica, and I said, "Tilden, he's just amazing. How does he do that?" And Monica said, "Well, she's wearing a name tag." And she was, but it's true. He does remember. And I think what we all also love about you, Tilden, is your unique facility for language. But as I read this book that we're honoring today, I just wrote down a few things that were, these are Tildenisms. Love-fired open presence. Spirit breezes rising up along life's way. A spirit-soaked, transforming awareness. A shimmering wellspring of truth. He describes sad elation, the concept of some illusion or willfulness has dropped away, something we often haven't even been aware of. We're elated by the gift of our new freedom and awareness. And at the same time, we're humbled by how blindly kidnapped we were by what has now fallen away as false or inadequate. I mean, that is so Tilden to notice it and name it, sad elation. So as I thought about him more deeply, I began to realize and appreciate how these qualities that we appreciate in you are now embedded in Shalem's DNA. And they're part of Shalem's innate character. Because Shalem was born of Tilden's heart and soul. So I want to go back to the months before that group that you described so accurately and beautifully. Because that was not the beginning of Shalem. This gentleman holds the beginning of Shalem. And that's what we honor today. Shalem has been raised and nurtured by many people, and Rosemary, you can take a bow because you've been critical to what it is today, as have many other people in this room, and a certain dead gentleman too. But Shalem's fundamental character reflects the circumstances of its conception and birth. Shalem was not delivered by a stork. It's here because of Tilden's yearning, his courage, and his trust in an unmapped journey. And I think some of us can relate to that idea in our own lives too. So let's just look at that birth and conception again with the point of view of how it is now mirrored in Shalem itself. Tilden got a very good education. He's a smart guy, and he's an ambitious guy, and he did very well at the best schools and then worked for 11 years here in Washington as a very sincere and earnest and hard-working priest in an ecumenical ministry, earnestly trying in this time of turmoil that Leah described, to help the churches, help the world. And he got really tired after 11 years and was burning out and had the sense to know he needed a sabbatical and was supported in that by his superiors. And he had had a taste of silent, guided meditation and had some vague notion of wanting to learn more about that on his sabbatical, but didn't really have a clue what he was doing or where he was going. And so he just went out on that classic soul search. He didn't know where he was going, he didn't know whom he was seeking, and he was scared, which I think is so honest. He writes about this. He wrote, "Allowing myself to be so vulnerable and susceptible with someone else risked being used, messed up, hurt. I had prided myself in the intellectual's independent, slightly skeptical attitude with others. Maturity, I thought, meant keeping my ego in the driver's seat at all times, staying in control, striving for more knowledge, i.e. for more control. Here I was, feeling stifled and spiritually immature after 37 years of life and 11 of priesthood. The only way out, the only way to real maturity now seemed to require letting go of what I had most prized, most developed, and most relied upon." Does that sound familiar? He followed his heart, and he went to a place that he loves, Northern California. And he began asking around for recommendations for a teacher or a program or a place. A trusted advisor asked him a very critical question. Tilden describes it. He asked, "Are you really ready to roll up your sleeves and go to work, regardless of where it leads you? Or do you just want to play games and not risk real change?" Tilden says, "I froze a little inside. Gnawing at the edge of my consciousness was the temptation to play the old game this summer and accumulate a little more knowledge and pride. But a deeper voice inside said, 'Yes, this is what you came for.' And straightening up in my chair after a long pause, I finally said, 'Yes, I'm ready.' And with that declaration, things began to move. And he soon found himself face to face with Tarthon Tulku Rinpoche, who is actually the person who is responsible for us being here today. He was given the opportunity to spend 2 months in individual retreat with Rinpoche. And he found that that time was as much a time of unlearning as of learning. And what he was learning were the ancient Buddhist practices of meditation that formed the basis of that small groups gatherings and of Shalem itself. Those mechanisms for being ready for the grace of a glimpse of ultimate reality. Not something we can ever make happen, but that we can make ourselves ready to receive. That's what he was learning.